Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Rachael Harper. Rachael, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. How about you?
I am doing very well, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I am very, very excited to sit down and have this talk with you. But before we talk about why you're here, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. Rachel was born and raised in Little Casper, Wyoming, which I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that place or not, but and she just gave birth to her first child, a daughter, in April of this year. And first off, congratulations on becoming a mother for the first time. I
Thank
know
you.
that's not the same as becoming a father for the first time. I didn't feel anything growing inside of me, but the
Yeah,
love that you're feeling right now is super amazing, and I'm so happy for you.
thank you.
Um, Actually, me and Rachel met on Twitter, and which sounds like the beginning of a horror movie, I know, but I've always admired her horror knowledge and her honesty about when it comes to horror. So I wanted to bring her on and talk a little bit about how it started. But before we do that, when did you have you been a horror fan your whole life?
Since I was about 4 or 5 years old, I really didn't get into horror until I was probably, goodness, 10 or 11 is when I started watching more. So
And I know, like, especially with horror fans, a lot of us are avid collectors, or we do a lot of deep dives and stuff like that. Do you collect anything horror?
I have a lot of signed prints, and I've only met a couple of people, so I've had some things signed, and but I have multiple autographs on my wall that I try to collect. I've got maybe 15 right now.
See, and it's amazing because I've never asked Rachel anything like that, but horror fans, we all have our little niche, whether it be autographs or NECAs or something around those lines, physical media in general.
Right.
And when you become a horror fan, especially at a young age, I feel like it helps to ground you in reality. And one thing I love so much about talking to people about horror movies is you may be up to almost 500 episodes, and this may be the first time you've ever gotten to talk about a movie. And that happens today. This is the first time I've gotten to talk about this movie. So I am beyond excited to talk about this movie for the first time. So let's go back to the past, Rach, and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Rachel, the first horror movie that you watched was.
Urban Legend, 1998.
See, and that's what I'm talking about. I have done almost 500 episodes of this podcast, and I've never gotten to talk about the first Urban Legend. I've talked about the second one. I had someone that watched the second one first. That was the first horror movie they watched. Never got to talk about this movie. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time that you had seen Urban Legend?
I'd say between 4 and 5. I can't put the exact age on it, but I'd say between 4 and 5.
Right. And obviously, this is a movie that came out during the Scream craze. This is a movie that came out when horror was kind of going in its meta, swing. And this is one of the better ones that stand out from that time frame. When you have your, I Know What You Did Last Summer, your Urban Legends, your Screams, your Valentines, all these movies were coming out when horror was becoming cool. I hate to say it like that, but this is when horror was, more approachable to the preteens and the teens rather than just, oh, we watch scary movies in October. So,
Right.
do you remember who you were with the first time you had seen it?
Yeah, I was with my twin sister, and we got caught by our mother putting in the VHS tape and watching it. So we got caught. I can't remember exactly what scene we were at, but yeah, she was pissed. So, and I actually talked to her this morning. I told her I was going to be on this podcast, and she's like, "Oh, what's this podcast going to be about?" And I said, "Oh, horror movies. My first horror movie." I told her, I said, "You remember what it was?" And she said, "Yeah, it was Urban Legend, and I almost kicked your guys' asses for it." So,
That is so
yeah,
awesome. So, your sister, is she a big horror fan?
yeah, oh yeah, her favorite is Child's Play.
That's a damn
I mean,
good movie to have
classic.
as your favorite.
Yeah,
Not my favorite horror movie, but definitely my favorite franchise. What a
right.
fantastic franchise, in my opinion. So, um, Urban Legend does have its fair share of iconic moments, though. And I think that it really gets overlooked because, like I said, the unfortunate thing about this movie is the time when it came out because it almost gets overshadowed because you have like your Screams, your I Know What You Did Last Summers, and Urban Legend kind of falls to the bottom, which I don't know why. I think this movie is absolutely fantastic. But do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
I think a lot of people look at the opening scenes a lot, and I love the opening scene a lot because of Brad Dourif. I'm a huge fan of Brad's, but Just that opening scene of him trying to save the victim from the killer in the back seat, and she's thinking he's the bad guy. So I think that was probably, I mean, it's the opening scene, it's iconic, but to me, that's the most iconic scene in the whole movie.
And you get probably one of the most iconic urban legend moments when you have Brad Dourif screaming at her.
Someone's in the back seat!
Yeah.
That whole moment to me, again, someone that loves Child's Play, that is such an iconic moment because, like you said, he's got the stutter. She walks inside, the phone is off the hook. So
Hmm.
it does not see, and I say stutter like that makes someone evil, but that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's got that creepy vibe about him. And
Yep.
a lot of people look at that moment like, I need to get out of here, when really he's trying to help her.
Yep. But
And
she just
then,
couldn't tell.
right, you get the person in the back seat sitting up and, getting the kill right there. Never listened to Bonnie Taylor's Total Eclipse of the Heart the same after that either. Like,
Absolutely. Yep. That and After the Strangers Pray at Night. So, yes.
what a beautiful song that has been made so scary because of horror movies. Like, and it
Absolutely.
fits so perfectly too. Um, and it is funny because it's still to this day, like if I'm leaving work and it's late, I'm a geriatric man, I'm not a pretty young lady, but I still look in my back seat before I get in the
Yep.
car just to be safe, just to make sure that everything's on the up and up before I get in. So,
You and me both.
um, yeah, and like you said, this I will agree with you, especially when it comes to horror openings. This is one of the best. I put it up there with Scream as one of the best horror openings because you have this moment of she got away, and she doesn't know. We don't even know there's someone in the back seat until Brad yells it.
Yep.
So then we're like, oh fuck, maybe
Yeah, here
she
we
didn't
go.
get away. Yeah.
Yep.
So we know which scene affected you the most, Rachel. But what would you say your favorite scene from Urban Legend would be?
They kind of set Danielle Harris up as to be this kind of like freak in a way. So her death is probably one of my favorite scenes. I love her to death, but her death is probably one of the best in the whole movie, and that's probably my favorite scene. Just not just because I love her, because it's so creative, and then they've got Alicia Witt turning around, seeing what was written on the wall. It makes the whole movie for me.
And it's funny when you go and you look at all the horror royalty that is in this movie. You got Brad Dourif, you got Danielle Harris, you got Robert Englund, like all these people that are so iconic and such big horror staples that are a part of this movie. And it's a very well casted movie, which is funny to me because Jared Leto tries to act like he wasn't even in this movie. And I'm
Right.
like, dude, you were the nerdy blonde kid in Fight Club that got the shit beat out of you, and you're going to deny Urban Legend? Like, you were actually
Yeah.
kind of decent in this movie, man. So I don't get what the big fuss with him is about being in this movie.
I don't either. Actually, I'm a big fan of his. So yeah, absolutely.
I actually just got the new 30 Second to Mars record, and I actually dig it. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely different. But Never Not Love You is probably one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my entire life.
Right.
So definitely a huge fan of his as well. So I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that you're such a big fan of his as well.
Yeah.
Um, so this movie is one that I would say stood the test of time, and it really did overshadow a lot of the, excluding Scream. I would even put this above I Know What You Did Last Summer, in my humble opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think that a lot of great actors and actresses, not their best performances though. A lot
Right.
of the times I'm like, what are we doing here? So again, don't crucify me, guys, but I'm not the biggest
No.
fan of that movie. I think Urban Legend definitely surpasses it. Now, since it is a trilogy now, there are three of these movies. We always ask when it comes to a franchise, is the first one your favorite in the franchise?
Oh, I hate coming on here and saying this, but I have not seen the other two.
Really?
Yep.
Now, I will say, do they live up to what the first one did? No. But it's a very solid trilogy. There's not one movie in this trilogy that I watched and I'm like, oh, this is garbage. Oh my God, this is bad. So if you get the chance, I would definitely recommend checking them out because it's a solid trilogy.
Okay.
Like, again, I Know What You Did Last Summer has I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. So you can't even give that the trilogy treatment. So
Yeah.
this movie does not have a film in the franchise like that. I'm very proud of the Urban Legend trilogy, and I think that it really does. Especially the second one has a lot of moments where you're like, oh, damn. No, don't take her kidney, please. Stuff like that. So if you get the chance to check it out, I would strongly recommend it. Now, since we're talking about a movie that is over 20 years old, I always ask. I believe it's over 20 years old. When did this come out? 98?
Yep, it just had its 25th anniversary.
So I'm right. So remakes, requels, sequels, all the rage in Hollywood, obviously. Is Urban Legend a film that you would like to see them try to remake today?
I was actually just going to bring that up, and no, I believe that that's one that they could leave alone, but I have a feeling that's one that will be remade one day.
I think it'll get like a requel, like the Scream treatment. I think they'll do something like that, maybe even with a TV show. Um, because there's so many different urban legends that you could add into this, and just
Right.
like the Little Bo Peep and stuff like that. There's so many things you could add into this to make it work as a TV show, even. So, Rachel, we know we've talked about your first horror movie and what urban legend means to you, but here for a second, I do want to throw a curveball your way.
Okay.
My little buddy Ghostface, and I know the answer to this question, but I have to ask anyway. My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite scary movie, Rachel? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh gosh, you know, it's Scream 3 and nobody's going to be surprised about it.
I
Nobody's
called
going
it.
to
I knew it. Like before I even asked, I literally already had it written down that it
Yep.
was Scream 3. Um,
I
and it's
can't get
funny
enough.
because that movie went through a phase where everybody just unjustly hated it. And I was like, man, for what the production team went through and all the bullshit that was surrounding it at the time, this is a fun movie. Like I had so much fun with Scream 3. Um, and something I've said for years now. Ever since I saw Scream, whatever, 4, 5, whatever, 5, whatever you want to call it, 5 Cream or whatever. Um, what I think the way they should start Scream 7, okay, and I'm putting this out there to the universe. Let's make this happen, universe. You're gonna have Gail Weathers doing her weather report. She's still doing the news, and then all of a sudden, hey Gail, we got a live caller for you, and it's Dewey, and he's like, "Hello, Gail," and he's using the voice changer from Scream 3 to have Dewey's voice. Could you imagine the heartbreak to go into that opening of hearing Dewey? And that's the way that you could get David Arquette back. Listen, I
Oh,
love the voice changer, guys. Okay,
yes.
I love the voice changer. But, why weren't you there to save me, Gail? I was waiting for you to see. Like that could be the most heartbreaking shit ever, and it all happens on that way. You don't start the movie. Throw the twist of not having a major kill to open the movie. Just have this heartbreaking moment of Gail realizing Ghostface is back. Like that to me would be the dopest way to open Scream 7 or Scream 2024 or whatever Christopher Landon's going
Whatever.
to call it. But I sorry I had to go on that tangent there for a second, but everybody bitches about Scream 3 and the voice changer, and I'm like, that's really your biggest gripe? If I made a movie franchise that had 6 films in it, and the worst thing that happened in 6 films was a voice changer, I'm gonna be fucking stoked with how my
That
franchise is.
that or the bangs on Courtney Cox. Everybody gives me shit because I say they're not that bad. They're really not that bad.
No, in one picture they look bad. Okay, we can
Yeah.
make anybody look bad in one picture.
Right.
Um, and again, I love a lot of Scream 3. I think the only thing that holds that movie back a little bit for me is I think Dewey's a little over comedic in that movie, but there's still moments in that movie that are genuinely scary. The Maureen ghost outside the window
Oh my
is one of
god.
the scariest moments in any Scream movie. Um, and there's just Carrie Fisher's great in that movie. There's so much. I could do a whole 2-hour thing about why I love Scream 3 and why it's so underrated in the franchise. And to be honest, I think it's way better than 4. I hate Scream 4. I hate it. Everybody loves it, and I get crucified for it, but I get turned off every time they start doing those double fake openings. I'm like, I'm fucking done. This is it.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like Scary Movie with how they were doing those openings. I was
Yes.
like, so now we're just parodying ourselves. Now I'm done. Um, but I'm really happy to be able. That's another thing that I really wanted to talk about was your love of Scream 3 because every single person I ever talked to has it last in the franchise. I'm like, why? I don't get it because there's one killer because they have a weird voice changer. Like that's brilliant to me. They
That's
took a
what sets
shot.
it
Like they took
off.
a big swing.
Right. The one killer just sets the whole thing off from the entire franchise. It sets it aside and it just makes it more interesting and more intimate in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And who they chose for Roman is just a great casting choice, in my opinion. You can't go wrong. You can't go
Right.
wrong with Scream 3. But I'm
Right.
biased. So.
But I agree with you. I've never, I feel the way, again, now this might get you to be like, shut the fuck up, Ken. I feel the same for Scream 3 as I feel for Halloween Resurrection. Like, it's always at the bottom of everyone's list, but I've never watched either one of those movies and not been having a fun time. Is Halloween Resurrection a great horror movie? No. But it's a fun movie that I laugh at, has some cool jump scares, has some great kills. That's what I want in a horror film, you know?
Right.
And I will defend Scream 3 and Halloween Resurrection to the death. I have so much fun with both those movies. So, all right. So, again, I've had an amazing time talking to you about all these things and why horror means so much to you. But before I let you go, I've always bounced back to the same question. Rachel, we're going to go back to Urban Legend. And what we're going to do here is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. All we're doing is ranking Urban Legend on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Rachel, what would your ranking of Urban Legend be?
5, because it really opened my eyes to the whole horror genre at such a young age. Like, oh, I want to see more of this. Is there other movies like this?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say 5.
And it really does, for some people, it really does create it's like a drug, you know? You get that first high and then you're constantly chasing that dragon. I want to feel that again. I want to feel that again. And it's the healthiest, best drug, because you guys know I don't condone drug use. It is the healthiest and best drug you can possibly have, because the only thing it's going to do is scare a couple years off your life. You're not going to watch a horror movie and then die right away. So, yay, don't do drugs, do horror movies. So, I didn't say this at the beginning, but I do want to say, because we are at the end of the third act, guys. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I have all of Rachel's social media links down in the description. So if you're not following her already, please make sure you follow her. She's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. We're always talking about horror movies, and she's always posting some great horror shit on there. That's how I knew Scream 3 was her favorite. So you can follow along with all the amazing things that she's doing by following her on social media. Rachel, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. We'd love to have you along as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.